Hello everyone. Thought I would give you an update on my state of health, which is now improving, and take you on a little walk around Plymouth while I do so. Originally I was thinking I would describe the events of the last couple of months in detail, but I don't think it would be pleasant viewing for you, and wouldn't really do much other than terrify people who might find themselves in the same situation as I did. So I'm going to leave much to your imagination, but this walk I'm going on will give you a kind of metaphorical idea of what went on. But I'm going to start it here in a park in the middle of Plymouth. And the reason I'm starting here is that I'm going to talk a little bit about the English Civil War and the siege of Plymouth while I walk around, and also describe how a piece of naval slang entered the English language, entered the vernacular, which summed up my predicament fairly aptly as well. So at the moment you're looking at a hill in Manamede, a place called Manamede in Plymouth, and where those lines of houses are now, there was actually a line of royalist artillery put up there during 1644. Yeah, so the siege of Plymouth wasn't a continuous event. The main battle, which took place on a place called Lipson Hill, which has now been renamed Freedom Fields, happened in 1643, that basically caused the royalists to withdraw. But in 1644, the royalist army under Charles and Maurice had achieved some notable successes in Cornwall, and they brought the army back to Plymouth and had another go at besieging the city. And as I say, they put a line of artillery up. Where those lines of houses are, they were in the same line. There's a road up there called Vaporin Road, which is actually so called because of the vapouring of the artillery, the royalist guns, as they fired on the city of Plymouth, which is over in that direction there, but you can't see it because of the tree lines and hills and so on. So yeah, let's start off on the walk, and probably have to dip the camera quite a lot or stop recording to avoid filming people. But I'm going to take you down the hill here. So you can see there's a little bit of, quite a lot of work going on as we go down the hill now. They're re-landscaping it and so on. And that's because this area at the foot of the hill here floods quite easily. In wet weather it's always very muddy, and the puddles are a few inches deep and don't seem to drain away. So they're doing a lot of groundwork to try and improve the flow of water away from the area, and we're going to follow that course of the water right the way down to the sea, or the mouth of the river Tamar anyway. And it's quite a neat metaphor, as my problem began with an obstruction to my own waterway flow, and unfortunately I had to be seen to in the casualty department back at the beginning of January, and their intervention did not exactly go according to to plan, and it left me severely mauled. It's probably the expression. Yeah, it left me for about the first week in a state of extreme pain and discomfort, but that sort of just eased to a sort of steady state of discomfort and lacking the ability to be able to move very much without causing myself some problems. And certainly walking around like this, you know, I could do it, but it would cause kind of internal bleeding and so on. And I was mainly encouraged to stay at home as a result of that. So here you can see a lot of the work that's going on. It seems to mainly involve cutting down trees at the moment, which seems to me a little bit counterintuitive. So this is the area where the drainage was a big problem. And we're going to go off to the right here now and start to walk, you know, a slow gradient down towards the sea level, following the course of water, and just point out sort of little things of interest as we go. But you can see this is kind of a natural valley, and with a sort of gentle incline to it, and this is the way the water travels down. There is sort of rudimentary kind of stream down here. Just going to go off to the left here for a moment though. Show you this. In the Second World War, this was the site of a air raid shelter, and there's a tragedy here in that the shelter took a direct hit from a bomb, and a large number of people were killed here. But there's a little, I suspect the shelter was actually underground here. But as I said, in recent years they've put a memorial up to the people who died here. Nine lives lost, including a few children and teenagers. Anyway, let's get back on with the main walk. Yeah, I got myself in a bit of a state with it all. It's about sort of 3 weeks in. I was given an appointment to go back to outpatients in 5 weeks, but about 3 weeks in, I still had some pretty alarming symptoms, and got in touch with my GP, and it wasn't his intention to freak me out, but he certainly succeeded in doing so, because he gave me some of the figures from the blood tests that I'd had done while I was in casualty, and they were highly abnormal. So he did another blood test on me, which was not as high, but still way over what it should have been, and referred me for an urgent biopsy. So by that point I was in such a lot of pain, and really worried by these off the scale readings, that I kind of convinced myself that I had, cancer and wasn't going to, recover. So I was starting to make plans for clearing my house and all that kind of thing, and really, really freaked out, and that actually made me feel a lot worse. The anxiety of that didn't help. So you can see here, so I'm going along, this is where, in wet weather, it's been a very dry period. There is, boggy areas and water flowing down here. There's even a tiny little ornamental area down here with a sort of tiny little bridge over what is often the wet area. Yeah, but when I finally got to see the people in outpatients 5 weeks after my initial attendance at casualty, they kind of were quite reassuring, and they explained that the high levels were just an indication of how much I'd been traumatised is the word, how much my body had been had sort of suffered as a result of the not botched but difficult intervention at the beginning. So that kind of put my mind at rest. But the one thing that was regrettable was they said casualty should have started me on a course of medication from day one, really, and they hadn't done that, so I was 5 weeks into it without any hope of kind of improvement. So they started me on that medication then, and ended up having to wait another 2 weeks, and I went back to see them again at the beginning of this week. And it was really only from the beginning of this week that things started to go my way, and I'm now able to get out on walks like this. Yesterday I went up on the moor with my friend Peter, who had been very supportive during that rough period, and we used to come for gentle strolls around this park rather than walking on the moor. So you can see this area here is often like a duck pond almost, and there's a tiny little kind of ornamental bridge here to allow water to flow underneath it.
Images from, I actually don't.
One side of this valley is Ford Park Cemetery, which I've often thought might be worth taking you on a tour around. There's some interesting graves in there. So you're getting more of an idea here now of the fact that this is kind of, in wet weather, this is a little stream here now. So, but as I say, we're going to follow this all the way down to the mouth of the River Tamar, and mainly kind of talk about some of the aspects of the siege of Plymouth. Again, it's another video that I've often thought of doing, and I will do properly at some future date, but it involves covering quite a large area, so I wouldn't be able to do it in this way, walking the camera along. Have to sort of like film it like a episodic thing, taking you to various locations around Plymouth where events and incidents happened during the siege. Because this whole area has been built up so much, you really don't get an idea of the topography any longer, unless you know what you're looking for.
It is funny. It's a lovely day, but might be more suitable kind of weather conditions if it was raining or there were puddles around. So it'll give you a much better idea of how wet this whole walk can be, especially the road just around the corner from here. So I'll talk a little bit more about when we get there. So I showed you that hill where the Royalist siege lines were in 1644, but from 1642 onwards, the city of Plymouth had thrown up some defences against possible siege, and they were kind of on that. They stretched right across the sort of promontory that Plymouth is on, from the River Plym to the River Tamar. But they were kind of on the top of that hill up there.
Hello? Hello? Hang on.
Yeah, so if you see that church there, that's St Matthias Church, and that's on a hill called North Hill, which is just to the north of the old part of Plymouth town. And there was eventually there was just earthworks, but originally there was just earthworks, but eventually there was a whole line of redoubts built to kind of strengthen the defences. One of them was on North Hill at a place called Magdalen, a sort of triangular fort. I'll try and put a map up, overlay the screen with a map at some stage, so you can see the arrangement of the forts. But they went, from left to right across the screen between the two rivers that
protect Plymouth on either flank, really, the Plym and the Tamar. So we're going to leave this path now and follow the road around this way. Okay, now you can kind of get a feel now, if we're following that stream, that there's a kind of natural curvature to this road. It's sort of following a valley down, and in wet weather, the whole length of this road, particularly on this side of the pavement, it's just flooded with puddles and things. Because obviously at the moment what water there is flowing is in the drains beneath the road and the pavement. Recently they've been cutting down a lot of the trees on this side of the road. Park's been doing a lot of work, and that's added to the problem of flooding. Again, the trees were kind of soaking up some of the water and acting as a natural kind of blockage, and removing them has just caused water to flood down these walls here onto the pavement. This is one of the areas here where there's been work going on, and you can see, even though it's been dry for nearly the whole of February, there's still patches of damp and so on here. Notice that there's still this steady descent. So this is the natural way that the water would want to get to the sea. Up on the left here is old sort of post office, sorting office. It's right next to the railway station, and it's raised up above sort of ground level over that side quite a lot, but it's very prone to flooding, severe flooding, if drainage, pipes and conduits and so on get blocked. They even had a kind of plague of rats that had been driven from their underground habitation by a severe flood one year, I remember. And up on the right here, there used to be a prison, but only the sort of wardens' buildings and so on are still there. They're used as private residences now. Probably be able to show you those a bit closer in a moment. Up there, it's the old prison buildings, or some of them anyway. We're going to cross over to the left-hand side of the road at this point. Okay, now as we get up to this roundabout, begin to get the first clue as to what's going on with the topography of the landscape here. Okay, so this area of Plymouth is called Penny Come Quick. There actually used to be a pub over there called the Penny Come Quick, and it's quite a sort of quaint, whimsical name. Lord Astor, who was the husband of Nancy Astor, who was first female Member of Parliament for Plymouth, took the name for one of his racehorses, because he thought it was quite a sort of lucky sounding name. But Penny Come Quick is actually a corruption of a Cornish sort of Gaelic term for the head of a creek. And the creek goes on just underneath where that railway bridge there is. So we're going to follow the course of the water down that way, but just going to take a brief diversion up underneath this railway bridge here to talk a little bit more about the defensive lines during the Civil War. Okay, now this road here is actually called North Road West, and there is a North Road East. I'll probably be able to show you the mouth of a bit further up here. So you can just about make out where it is. It's behind that sort of dumper truck tipper truck over there, and you can see the tower of St Matthias. So that is North Road East, and before this main road was cut through here, North Road East and West were sort of more or less one continuous road. And that was the road that linked all the defensive redoubts together across quite a wide stretch of the promontory. And one of the redoubts would have been just over here on what is now North Circus. So there would have been a defensive fortification there. So just have to bear that in mind now. So we're going to return to following the creek, but you can see how that's a sort of natural defence line along the ridge there, and the creek is kind of running below it, acting almost as a moat. Back at the roundabout, and now we're going to peel off to the left here, carry on with our exploration of the creek. shortly we'll be turning left and going underneath this bridge and then turning left. This footpath here.
Che peccare da quello, siamo andati a là, si vede che non scatta di peccato.
Okay, now here you get a much better idea of what the creek was actually like. It was sort of definitely tidal up to here until as recently as after the end of the First World War, I think it was. There's a date, the commemorative plaque up the end, but then they dammed off this last part of it, blocked it off and turned it into a park. But you can see it's quite a wide area. Would have been seawater in here for much of the day, and the line of redoubts, or the defensive lines anyway, go along North Road West, which is might actually even be those houses there are in North Road West, but it's certainly just above, up on top of the ridge there. So a nice natural defensive feature, although it was actually this area here. Most of the fighting during the war, as I say, it was very kind of broken up into particular years where the Royalists tried to capture Plymouth, but it was only the 1644 siege where the Royalists did try and get across this creek. Up the other end of this part here, there's a bridge across the creek, which is it's now known as Mill Bridge, but it was a mill on a bridge, which was the only kind of easy access across the creek. So the defenders of Plymouth put another redoubt at the top of the hill up there, opposite the bridge, which is called the New Work. So let's carry on walking now. Yeah, so I might as well carry on. Not that there's much more to say about my state of health. Things are sort of settled now and are improving. I'm probably going to have to remain on the medication for the rest of my life there, they say, and I won't be able to get any diagnostic test results really for another 6 weeks. I'm due to go back in about 6 weeks' time, start a number of tests and so on. But hopefully none of the outcomes are ideal. Obviously, being on medication, I don't really like the idea of being reliant on something. But if I can get away just with that, without any other sort of surgery or unnecessarily painful interventions, then I'll be content. It's great going out on the moor yesterday. Sense of kind of freedom and pleasure at getting back to a normal routine. It was just great. So my spirits have lifted a lot. Now, I didn't really feel like doing much in the way of even wargaming. At one stage when I was convinced that it was really serious, just thought, well, I may never get to finish these figures that if I start painting them, so it just, other than it, gave me a bit of time to occupy my mind with something else. So I did carry on painting, but I wasn't making any long-term plans for, let's put it that way. So over there's the Roman Catholic Cathedral is just above there, and that's a kind of Catholic school. It was. I don't know if it's still in use, but you can get an idea of how the creek was walled and so on. So you could get vessels up here, and they could offload cargo and so on.
Yeah.
From Singapore, so.
Oh, right. Yeah, but I went yesterday.
Now, I was going to make a diversion, but I think it's not necessary because I can show you it from here. You can see what looks like a sort of an industrial chimney there. I'm pretty sure that that's the one, so I'm not going to bother to take this diversion because it's a bit unnecessary, but that is actually a sort of disguised what's known as a Victorian stink pipe. So it was placed there in the early Victorian era, so prior to the time when lavatories and so on had a sort of U-bend return pipe, and it allowed all the sort of noxious gases and so on to flow out of the sewers rather than back up people's water closets and so on into homes and residences and so on. So it's kind of high up in the air, just allowing all that unpleasant human gases and so on to escape. But obviously the actual raw sewage itself had to go somewhere. And where did it go? It went into this creek.
Yeah, I was only telling Mike, let's have another dog. I wouldn't get it because
So that might give you another clue as to this naval expression that I'm going to talk about in a minute. You get a better idea here that that was actually a bridge at one time. And there would have been a mill on it, probably worked by tidal flow. Here we are. I think this gives you the date of when 1902 then, so it's slightly, I said it was after the First World War. It was during the early Edwardian period, obviously named after the recently deceased Queen Victoria. They converted it into a park, but at one time that was part of the creek, which I might as well tell you now was known as Stonehouse Creek. So we're now coming into an area of Plymouth known as Stonehouse. Millbridge is sort of down there as well. Across the road. And you can see there's a similar situation here where the creek has been dammed higher up by Stonehouse Bridge this time, which goes across the creek a little bit higher up, and all been converted into playing fields. A lot of it for the school over there, which is Devonport High School. So this is their playing fields, but it wasn't originally the school. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we've got a clearer view of it. Okay. So you can probably see from the sort of isolated buildings that isn't a very good design for a school. It was originally a hospital, Stoke Military Hospital. It was built in 1797 and only closed down shortly after the Second World War, and Devonport High School moved into the premises after that. But any patients and so on could actually be brought up the creek to this hospital and disembarked over there and taken up to the hospital. And each building was a separate ward of the hospital. And it was put there in 1797, but up on the left up here is the Naval Hospital, which was actually built much earlier. Started it during the 7 Years' War. I think it started in 1758 and it was completed in 1765, and that only closed down in 1995. And all the staff, obviously naval staff and so on, but a lot of them were moved up to Derriford Hospital, where I used to work. So I worked alongside a lot of naval personnel and dealt with naval and military patients as well as the public. As I say, it's now you can see a little bit of it there. It's now private residences. But again, it's a little bit difficult to show you it now. I understand that you can still see the berth where patients could be brought up the creek and transported up to the hospital itself, which must be around here somewhere. It's not terribly obvious. Probably around here somewhere. So now you've probably guessed on the naval expression. There's a bit more of the hospital there. This creek was full of human feces and so on, washing down to the sea. So it was affectionately known as Shit Creek by both Navy and Army. So if you were up Shit Creek, it meant you were in one of these two hospitals, probably suffering from some condition or other. And that's how the expression passed into common parlance. This is Shit Creek. It's not just a metaphor, it is an actual place. And as I say, for some time it felt as though I was there both literally and metaphorically. So nearly at the conclusion of the walk, I'm just going to take you up to Stonehouse Bridge and show you the actual water, tidal water, with possibly some smaller vessels in it, to show you how it does connect. So that's Stonehouse Bridge there where the cars are going across. And on the other side of it, some of those buildings are actually shipbuilding yards and so on. Because there is actually water there and can be accessed from the sea, as until recent times so could this. A couple of options about how we can get up there, but go this way I think. See Princess Yachts. The actual creek itself, so all that's left of actual Stonehouse Creek, the rest of it's now under playing fields and pavements and roads and so on. So I'll stop the video there at that point. Hope you enjoyed the little sort of brief history lesson, if not the torrid story of my recent predicament. Hopefully now things will get back to normal. We'll get back to uploading more videos. I'm thinking about going to Salute now. It wouldn't have been possible before, but that's now dependent more on rail strikes and so on. See if the industrial action's still going on in April. Okay, thanks very much for watching everyone. See you on the next video.